Hi everyone. Today's unit that we'll be looking at, and it's business communication, and we've looked at learning outcome 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now today's session is the assignment discussion session we'll be looking at, which is in regards to what will be expected of you to do in the assignment. So I'll just give you firstly briefly a summary of what we've done in the last sessions. So you've got an idea of what we did in learning outcome 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and then move on to the assignment discussion. So learning outcome 1, we looked at the communication process, and we looked at the types of communication. So we looked at formal, informal, verbal, non-verbal. We looked at internal and external communication. So in reference to internal communication, we looked at things like face-to-face communication, written communication, formal meetings. And then for external, we looked at business letters, emails, social media, and things like reports that are more external forms of communication. We then went on to look at the use of technology within communication and channels of communication. So things like speaking, listening, reading. We then looked at the use of technology, things like, emails, IT, how they present issues with technology, emails, mobiles. We then went on to look at barriers to communication. So you could have things like physical barriers, you could have language barriers, things like cultural barriers, media barriers, emotional and disability barriers. So there's more barriers that can play a part in trying to distort away from any form of communication. Then in learning outcome 2, we looked at an activity that needs to be presented. So we need to look at how you would select a topic area, and then how it would be an oral communication activity where you'd actually prepare a presentation and look at the technology. And it was a mock presentation. We also looked in learning outcome 2 at how you'd manage a question and answer session, but also look at preparing the presentation and how you would engage that presentation to your audience, what forms of communication you would use, what forms of IT resources you'd use, and what forms of, if there's any sort of verbal, non-verbal communication. So we looked at that in learning outcome 2. We then went on to learning outcome 3, which was looking at factors to consider when communicating customer courtesy. And we looked at FAQs, feedback, customer surveys. We looked at suggestion boxes and how they impact on communication within customers, CRM systems. We looked at the importance of written communication. We looked at the stages of communication. We also looked at the customer surveys in regard to customer feedback sheets, how they actually play a part in finding out what the customer and the organisation want, and also the issue in regards to how communication is important in regards to customer courtesy. We then went on to learning outcome 4, which we looked at feedback and reflection. We looked at listening skills. We looked at the written communication, so grammar, mechanics, formatting, presentation. We also looked at the personal reflection. We looked at responding to constructive criticism, because it's always viable and acceptable to take constructive criticism, but look at how you'd respond to it. We looked at the skills gap analysis. We looked at reading skills, note-taking, things like that. We also looked at this SMART objectives, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, and how that applied to reading skills, note-taking skills, and also listening skills, and how they are so important in regards to communication, taking into account grammar issues, how you would format something, How would you format a presentation? And how would you meet the needs of the customers? And it's always good when you talk about feedback and reflection, to respond well to constructive feedback, but also to take on board the fact that feedback and reflection is good in regards to how a customer responds to your product, your brand, if there's any need of changing that brand, or if there's any sort of, issues around the brand, and also looking at things like, feedback from the customer to identify if there's any changes that can be made to the brand to try to improve the brand. And also, it's really important when it comes to customer courtesy and customer satisfaction, and when we communicate to customers, the issues around listening skills and written skills. So we went into that in Learning Outcome 4. So I've just give you a brief summary of all the learning outcomes 1, 2, and 3, and 4, which we'll look at a little bit later as well. And now we will look at the assignment discussion. So the assignment is for ATHE Level 3, 90 credit diploma in business, and it's a unit is business communication. The assignment scenario. So firstly, before progressing on to university to study international business, you have managed to secure a 4-month management internship with the prestigious company in Oxford, England. Verto is a relatively small UK-based electric vehicle manufacturer focused on making small, affordable electric cars and commercial cars. It has run the internship scheme for several years, offering 10 places a year. Verto is an increasingly successful brand, and the company has 2 options for growth. Firstly, there is intention to sell more electric vehicle cars overseas. Secondly, Verto wants to introduce a new model of small electric car, the Smart Hopper. Your responses to the task should be based on real businesses that you are familiar with. The businesses need to be small, medium enterprise, SMEs. Although some sole traders may not be able to provide sufficient information required for the tasks that you're about to do. You have been asked to work with customer service team and the head of customer service, Jane Peterson, is keen for your help. The team look at improving communications with customers. There have been some issues lately with a rise in customer complaints regarding poor communication. The problems raised include overuse of technical information in communications with the customers. Secondly, customers receiving emails from sales team and then from customer service with conflicting information. Thirdly, a lack of information regarding car delivery times and dates. And fourthly, a lack of opportunity to speak to the sales team directly. The team is also reviewing the company's communication strategy in the light of organizational growth plans. The team will be looking at the implications for communications with customers if Verto expand into overseas markets. Task 1. Jane has mentioned a big electric vehicle exhibition due to take place in Germany, and Verto will have a stand at the exhibition. Jane has asked you to prepare and deliver a 10-minute presentation to the board of directors on both the communication channels and the barriers to communication with the organization might face when expanding its operation into Europe. So here you're going to be looking at a 10-minute presentation and looking at the barriers to communication and communication channels. The board of directors will expect a professional presentation with occupying notes, which board members can use as reference. In your presentation and your file, you must include number 1, A, explain channels of communication used internally, and B, externally in organizations, which we looked at in Learning Outcome 1. B, explain barriers to communication for organizations looking to expand overseas. You should refer to at least 2 organizations with which you are familiar. So any organizations from outside you could use. Thirdly, C is use technology and other appropriate aids to present complex business information effectively. So that would be looking at learning outcome 1. Extension activities. To achieve a merit, so this is the top activities A, B, C, is to achieve a pass. To achieve a merit and do the extension activities, you will also need to provide the following evidence. So A, managed a question and answer session to demonstrate subject knowledge and communication skills. The evidence for this should include a record of your questions that are asked of you and questions you may have asked the audience. You must also provide a summary of the responses you gave to the questions you were asked. Thirdly, you must provide evidence of demonstrating how you managed to question the question and answer session. This could be a video recording of the session, notes recording how you plan the question and answer session, for example, setting the time limits, how to ensure participants are included in the question and answer session. Learning outcomes and criteria are learning outcome AC 1.1, 1.2, and learning outcome AC 2.1 and 2M1. And this, the activity to gain a merit is looking at the question and answer session, which is the second part. If you want to gain if you want to gain the merit. Task 2. One of the directors is concerned about the customer complaints listed above. Regarding poor communication and has asked for information relating to the systems other organizations use to communicate with customers. Jane thinks this would be a task you could undertake during your remaining time in customer services team. She has asked you to investigate at least 2 businesses to see how they communicate with their customers. She hopes you will be able to help Verto make improvements following the issues raised by the customers. Unit 3, Business Communication Assignment. To do this, you must prepare a formal business report. As a guide, the report should be approximately 2 sides of A4 in length. The report should include A, an analysis of the key factors organizations need to consider when communicating with customers. B, an analysis of systems for communication with customers in organizations. At least 2 different organizations need to be considered. Now, to do an extension activity for task 2 and gain a merit, you should also add a further section in your report to propose and justify solutions to complaints listed above from customers at Verto. And the learning outcomes for that are learning outcomes and assessment criteria AC 3.1, 3.2, and 3M1. Then we have task 3. The board is impressed with your presentation and the report on customer communications. But you are aware that there are ways in which you can develop your communication skills further. You decide to review your skills demonstrated in task 1 and 2 for verbal communication, written communication, reading, and listening. To do this, you must produce a set of notes to demonstrate you have A, obtained feedback on your communication skills, B, completed a personal reflection of your communication skills. Now, to gain a distinction in task 3, you must also produce a plan to improve personal communication skills. Your plan must include the SMART targets and opportunities for monitoring and reviewing the plan. So the SMART targets we looked at in learning outcome 4, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So you should be looking at them to achieve a distinction. This assessment, the learning criteria, is an assessment criteria, learning outcome 4, AC 4.1, learning outcome 2, and learning outcome 4, AC 4D1. So there are 3 tasks for you to do in there. And the ones you will be doing is task 1, 2, and 3, and there's subsections A, B, C between them tasks. If you want to do the extension activities, it's up to you to gain the extra marks to do the extension activities. And these are the guidelines for assessors. So in task 1, learning outcome AC 1.1 and 1.2, learning outcome 2, AC 2.1 and 2.2 M1, learners must deliver a presentation, as I've said to you in task 1. The learners need to explain channels of communication used both internally and externally in organizations and give 2 examples. The learners should use real business examples to support their understanding, and the electronic file needs to cover a substantial amount of indicative content. In AC 1.2.1.2, when explaining barriers to communication, the learners could refer to the assignment, case study, and organizations with they are familiar. The supporting electronic file should be set out images and diagrams. 2.1 must be participating activities, so you are producing a set of presentation slides insufficient to meet learning outcome 2. Learners need to prepare and deliver a professional presentation in a formal setting. This could involve pre- and post-presentation activities, and the audience should include more than 1 member. Should be a good opportunity for the audience to provide feedback for the learner to use in task 3. Learners need to use a range of aids when participating in the activity. This could include an email to potential participants with time, day information, delivering a presentation via Zoom, Teams, meetings, or handouts. The presentation should allow the learners to communicate complex information and allow them to have time to have a question and answer session so learners can obtain 2 M1. Now, to gain the extension activities, AC 2 M1, the learners need to provide evidence or that they have managed a question and answer session. And the assignment task lists the 3 types of evidence the learners need to provide. Learners should record how they ensured all audience members had an opportunity to ask questions, how they managed timings, how they demonstrated own knowledge and own communication skills. In addition, the assessors need to either video the presentation or complete detailed record of the learner's presentation to supplement the learner's own evidence. In learning outcome 2, task 2, the AC 3.1, 3.2, 3M1, learners need to produce a report set out to demonstrate the formal business report writing conventions. Learners should draw conclusions in their report. However, there's no requirement to make recommendations for the pass in AC. The learner should cover a significant amount of indicative content. The report should analyze at least 3 key factors to consider when communicating with customers. It should also analyze customer communication systems in at least 2 different organizations. A strong report will also make comparisons between systems to enhance the analysis. Tutors must ensure the learner chooses appropriate organizations. Large, complex organizations should be avoided, and learners should be encouraged to choose SME businesses. Now, to gain the merit 3M1, the learners should propose and justify solutions to the issues highlighted in the assignment case study. The issues requiring solutions should be clearly stated, and the solutions must be realistic and appropriate. There must be good use, must be made of indicative content, and the learners must structure this section of the report appropriately. Then you have task 3, which is AC 4.1, where the learner notes for this task need to demonstrate the learner has reviewed the effectiveness of their communication skills. This will obtain feedback and reflecting on these skills. The evidence provided must include a range of feedback from tutors, peers, employment, colleagues, or others, for example. Learners must reflect on personal skills regarding verbal communication, for example, in the presentation for learning outcome 2. written communication, for example, the written work produced in this unit, listening communication, and for example, when receiving feedback for AC 4.1 or managing the question and answer session for AC 2M1. Number 4, also reading skills. Well, they'll look at, for example, researching on learning outcome 1 and learning outcome 2. The evidence should be presented and as a set of detailed notes. In the AC4D1, it's a synoptic across learning outcome 2 and learning outcome 4. The learners need to produce a plan to develop their communication skills. The plan needs to cover the skill shortfalls identified as a result of the feedback and personal reflection evidenced in AC 4.1. The learners need to set SMART targets and must include opportunities for monitoring and reviewing the plan. So these have gone through learning outcome 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in regards to task 1. The scenario, they're the case study, and then that is reference to task 1 with the extension activities, task 2 with the extension activities, and task 3 with the extension activities to achieve the grade you expect for the extension activities. So what you need to do is make sure that when you are submitting the assignment, you have your name, the unit name, your college ID number, and you have the task number, the tasks highlighted with what you are doing in each part of the task. So for example, if you have task 1, you would put that as a heading. You also need a contents page, and then you would put A on the heading, explain channels of communication used, A and B externally and internally, then write everything about part A, then do the same as part B, put that as a heading, and part C as a heading. If you do the extension activities, make sure you head that as well as the extension activities and what part it is, so that the person who's looking at the work knows that you've completed both the pass activities, the extension, and the extension activities, either it be a merit or a distinction. So it identifies that you've done the extension activities. It needs to be made clear. So you need to put all the details at the start, your name, the unit details, the contents page, what you are doing in each task with the headings, each headings on each task, and what is expected of you, and identify your referencing is another area that you need to look at in regards to using the Harvard referencing system, and make sure it's all submitted at LearnerWorks at ukvarsity.co.uk. Okay, all your work needs to be submitted through that in regards to your tasks. So it must all be in one document, all the task 1, task 2, and task 3, not 3 separate documents. It must be submitted as one document with your use of Harvard referencing, additional resources on Moodle, and also the use of making sure that you have a contents page, a reference page, and if you are referencing things, you need to use Harvard referencing system. Okay, so now we have finished the assignment session. We've completed learning outcome 1, 2, and 3, and completed the assignment session. And this is now, please try to get on with that assignment. And if you have any issues, email or any questions, please email learnerworks at ukvarsity.co.uk. Thank you for attending this session.